going to talk about AI. Well, how does AI and blockchain overlap? Okay, so there's a number of ways. All of these: data ownership, transparency, monetization, cost cutting, innovation, inclusion, etc. And I am not going to talk about any of those things. Okay, what I'm going to talk about today is AI plus UI plus UX plus the blockchain. So, how does AI help us humans interact with the blockchain? That's what I'm really trying to figure out. So, there's two main ways that it does this. One is through the use of AI agents, and the second is through the use of generative user interfaces or generative UI. We're going to touch on AI agents pretty briefly and then dive into Gen UI. So, what are AI agents, or what is called self-driving money? It's your money that drives itself around to maximize its own returns. So the reason I'm going to touch on this very briefly is if we look at what a typical tech adoption curve looks like, it starts with the innovators and goes to the laggards. I'm sure we've all seen this graph by now. Now, the funny thing is with AI agents is the returns theoretically are going to be something like this. Once the innovators have really good AI agents, they're going to get maximum returns. But as soon as the laggards get it, the returns drop all the way down because any rational person will maximize risk to return ratio, which sort of eats out the returns over time, or the alpha over time. And then we sort of reach a bit of a, I guess, funny future where it's like, can you have a faster model that outcompetes all the other agents? But we'll touch on that in a little bit. The other thing to note in there is the vulnerability risk, which once even though the innovators are early and they get huge alpha up front, there's also a huge chance that they get hacked. And these early AI agents are going to do all sorts of funky things that us humans can't predict or understand. So it's like you want to be early in the AI agent adoption because you get maximum alpha, but also there's going to be a bunch of ups and downs of AI agents along the way if tech predicts the future. And we also sort of could reach some sort of a dystopian type future with AI agents, where if someone codes an AI agent that's like make profit at all costs and starts creating new financial instruments that we haven't thought of, we don't even know what the repercussions of this is yet. Which is sort of the reason that I don't want to dive too deeply into AI agents, because also there are people more knowledgeable than myself about them, firstly. And secondly, we're right over here right now. So we've got a couple years away before AI agents are material in any meaningful capacity. So what I do want to touch on is generative user interfaces. And that really starts answering the question, how do us humans interact with blockchains? Generative user interfaces, so what is that? Once again, it's how do humans interact with the internet of the future? And if you don't know what a generative user interface is, it's a client-facing application that appears in real time and only conveys the relevant information necessary. So you only see what you should be seeing in that exact moment. There are three key benefits that I'm going to touch on quickly. One is rapid prototyping and iteration. Another one is real-time personalization, and then dynamic content generation. So rapid prototyping and iteration. This is how a typical prototyping cycle looks. It starts with the user research, idea, mockups, blah, 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 until you have a live app. Now, all of these red arrows goes back from mockup to user research, etc., etc., back from implementation to mockup. This is how a typical product is designed. But with the use of generative UI, you delete all those red arrows. You can essentially go from idea to live app in the space of a few seconds, with the AI continuously regenerating the front end to be optimal. Real-time personalization. So this is what Salesforce user interface currently looks like. You have all these columns and all these rows. And this is generally what our interfaces look like at the moment. Everything's very bulky. But with real-time personalization, you essentially, once again, you see only the necessary information that you want to see. So if a user wants to enter a lead, for example, it's only that screen which will show. They don't need to see all the other information on the screen. Dynamic content generation. This here, in one case, a user may be more inclined to resonate with this screen than with that screen. So how do we actually start showing the user the screen that resonates with them the most and gets them to actually interact with blockchains more and more easily? So that's generative UI sort of in the Web 2 realm. But once we start playing with generative UI in blockchain, This means a number of different things. So there's simple simple interactions with complex smart contracts. We take the complexity and present it to users in a very simple way. The same with personalized DeFi dashboards. You only see what's relevant. Adaptable user interfaces, visual representations of market insights, standard interfaces across applications. So here, for example, the interfaces of maybe Uniswap and SushiSwap or whatever, or Osmosis, they do the same thing, but they're presented to the user differently. And each time there's a user onboarding flow. But if we could standardize that for you on a per user basis, contextual guidance. If a newbie comes into blockchain, they can actually start learning and understanding in real time what they need to do. Obviously, scam alerts and simulations. You don't have to actually execute the transaction, but you can see the outcome of the transaction. So this leads me sort of into what we're doing with 42. Now, what we're doing is we're going from smart contracts to dynamic app with generative user interfaces. So someone deploys a smart contract and uses the 42 SDK, they can get a fully functional app almost immediately. That can get deployed within the 42 marketplace, where we select what types of smart contracts we want to integrate. But protocols can also have a standalone app. So they would upload their own branding, their own contracts, and use the SDK for their standalone app. And not only do they get these standalone apps, but they're also dynamically optimizing to users in real time. This is an example of what 42 would look like. So a user, for example, they'd see this screen, they want to create a pie chart, for example. Very simple. Then they may say, I want to restake 3 ETH in Eigenlayer. In which case the next screen would be like, okay, well, first you have to swap 12,000 USDC for your 3 ETH. And then it's like, where can I stake this, or how do I stake that into Eigenlayer? Or I want to lend 100 USDC on Aave. We just show that the USDC vault on Aave. They don't need to see all the other information on the screen. So really, we are just, with 42, we're really focused on user interfaces. We're not touching smart contracts besides for the integrations on the back end, but we just want any user to be able to see the right front end at the right time. There is a quote in the AI space from an AI researcher person who says, the possibility space should be narrow enough to exclude broken artifacts, but broad enough to contain surprising artifacts as well. So the surprising quality of artifacts motivates users to explore the possibility space in search of new discoveries. So we essentially, how I like to think about that, it's like we want to provide a sandbox, or where users can go and play in the sandbox, but they're still confined by the sandbox at the end of the day. And that is it on generative user interfaces. That was significantly shorter than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, happy to take any questions. And feel free to reach out.